Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
We're going to have some fun in our unit today.
Yay!
And we're almost done with the month of March, and summer might be coming soon here, but it still might be a little cold, so you might want to stay indoors and play some games. Most of you probably want to play games on your smartphone or on your computer or whatever. But hey, try to do something radical. Try to do something different. Play an actual board game.
Yeah.
Like Wuzichi or Weiqi.
Checkers.
Or, in this particular case, chess,
Ooh.
which is the ultimate strategy game. I think you call it Xiyangqi in Chinese, but we just call it chess.
Yeah, I've always thought of chess as something that you had to have a lot of experience in before you could actually play. I'll be honest, I don't play chess. I've never played chess. I think I had a friend one time tell me about the pieces on the chessboard. But even then, I was like, yeah, whatever. But the people who like chess and play chess, they are such big fans. And you have to have a strategy. A lot of the board games that we play have to do with luck, right? You don't need to know much. It's just luck if you win. It's bad luck if you lose. But with chess, you have a strategy and you really think through things. We're going to talk about the history of chess and what some of these parts and pieces mean, which is great for me because I can learn more about it too. We're going to get started and we're going to read through day 1 now.
Two people quietly sit across from one another in a small room. Their attention is glued to several black and white pieces standing atop a checkered board. Although they appear peaceful, they are plotting each other's demise. Suddenly, one player slides his bishop diagonally across the board. He exclaims checkmate and shakes his opponent's hand, putting an end to their competitive chess game. Historians believe chess originated in India about 1,500 years ago. At first, it was called chaturanga. The Indians taught the Persians how to play it. Rather than retaining the original rules, the Persians revised them and renamed the game shatranj. From Persia, the game spread throughout the Islamic Empire. In turn, Muslim armies would later teach the Spanish and Portuguese after conquering their lands. Europeans were keen to play chess and made their own modifications as well. The English named it chess after the old French word échec, meaning check. By the 1600s, the game closely resembled chess as it's played today. Its popularity as a sport exploded when chess tournaments were organized at the end of the 19th century. Players began utilizing more complex strategies to win championship matches, and fans enjoyed following the results to discover who the best players were. Another high point for chess occurred in 1996 when the world's top player Garry Kasparov squared off against Deep Blue, a chess-playing computer designed by IBM. Kasparov was victorious in the first match, but then IBM made some improvements. A year later, Deep Blue shocked the world by defeating Kasparov in the rematch, as the computer was able to evaluate hundreds of millions of moves per second.
Let's get started, guys. It's chess, the ultimate strategy game. It is very difficult to play, I think. It can be easy if you play with somebody who is at your level. Like a beginning player, a beginner, would not want to be playing an advanced player. It's not even fair. Because they have so many more moves that they've thought through and watched either be successful or be a failure. Ultimate here just means, the best or most extreme example of something. So this is kind of the best strategy game out there among the games that require strategy. So we've got two people who quietly are sitting across from one another in a small room. This is our scenario that we often start our articles with so that you can imagine in your mind or picture in your mind what's going on. We've got two people. Of course, chess is usually quite quiet, quite silent. People aren't, chattering and listening to loud music unless they're in a park. Sometimes the park will have a lot of music from other people. But they're sitting quietly and they're across from each other or across from one another, and they're in a small room. Their attention is glued to several black and white pieces standing atop a checkered board. Now, here we've got their attention is glued. Glue is something we use to get two things to stick together, right? But if your attention is glued to something, or my mom used to say, the kids are glued to the TV screen. We were watching some TV show and she couldn't get our attention. So they're glued. At least their attention is glued to the black and white pieces. When you're playing chess, you've got different colors or different types of material that are used for each side. So you can tell the difference between each person's chess pieces. Now, atop just means on top of. But if you use atop, then you don't have to use three words. They're standing atop something, or it's on top of something. Notice we need a preposition with on top of. And they're playing on a checkered board. They're not playing checkers, but the board is checkered. It's got little squares all over it.
Yeah, I believe it's 8 by 8. You've got 64 squares there. Half of them are white and half of them are black. And they're kind of, in alternate order there. The first row is white, black, and the next row is black, white, black, white. You get the idea. That's a checkered board. Okay, so that's the board that you use when you play chess and checkers as well. At least in America, we call that game checkers, which is what kids play. It's a really easy game. But they're playing chess here, and although they appear peaceful, they are plotting each other's demise. Okay, so it looks like they're just sitting there quietly, and they're not arguing, they're not fighting, but still they want to defeat each other. If you want to plot someone's demise, basically it just means you want to defeat them, you want to destroy them, you want to wipe them out. So indeed, they're plotting each other's demise. Demise itself just refers to someone's ending or someone's death.
Someone's death, sometimes we use it to talk about the bankruptcy or failure of a company. The institution's demise or that company's demise happened last year. So they're plotting each other's death. Not really death, but they each want to beat each other, of course. Suddenly, one player slides his bishop, that's the name of one of the pieces, diagonally across the board. So diagonally isn't up and down or across. It goes kind of like in the shape of an X. That's diagonal. So it moves diagonally, which is an adverb, across the board. He exclaims, "Checkmate." You'll hear that word a lot in chess. It's a word that you hope that you can say instead of your opponent. If you exclaim something, it just means you're saying something out loud. Usually, it can be with a lot of emotion. Maybe you're very happy, maybe you're angry, but you're saying this with a lot of emotion, I think. You exclaim something. Checkmate, and shakes his opponent's hand, putting an end to their competitive chess game. Looks like he won. Checkmate. So if you shake your opponent's hand, your opponent is the person that you're trying to beat. Usually, opponent is only used in games. If it's in business, that person that you're competing against would be your competitor. So, opponent here, of course, is with the game, and it puts an end to their competitive chess game. What's competitive, Tom?
Competitive means you're competing against each other. Sometimes jobs can be competitive, especially if you want to, say, be a TV star or a radio personality. It's very competitive. Everybody wants that job, and there's a lot of competition for that particular job. In this particular case, the game is competitive. Of course, only one person can win. That's how it goes. Someone's got to win. Someone's got to lose. That's the way the ball bounces. So, yeah, they're putting an end to their competition or to their competitive chess game. And remember, checkmate is what you want to reach when you've trapped your opponent's king and the king can no longer move. Any move is death for the king. And when you put the king in danger, you say check, okay? And then if the person can move the king out of the way or be blocked, if you can move another piece in front of the king or whatever, then you're okay. But checkmate means you're done, you're finished, you can no longer move that king, it's destroyed. Okay, so there's an example of how a chess game would end. Let's talk about the origins of chess now. Historians believe chess originated in India about 1,500 years ago, or 1,500 years ago. You can read it either way. So yeah, it came from India. That's what to originate means. Originated in India. It's from India, basically.
I didn't know that, so this is some new info for me. At first, it was called Chaturanga or Chaturanga, perhaps.
That's what I said, yeah.
Yeah, the Indians taught the Persians. Persia back then, of course, is modern-day Iran. That's the country. So they taught them how to play. So rather than retaining the original rules, the Persians revised them. And they also gave the game a new name, shatranj. So here we've got this phrase, rather than. You could also substitute it for instead of. Instead of retaining the original rules, or the original rules is what we would say. So rather than just keeping things as they were, they thought, I think we can make this game better. A lot of people think that. So they revised the rules. If you revise something, you change it. Hopefully, you change it for the better. But you reconsider something, you alter it, you change it, usually because you've gotten more information or maybe you see some mistakes you made. Usually when we write papers for school, we'll write a first draft, a second draft. We might keep revising our papers until we feel like it's in good shape. We can turn it in to our teachers.
Right, so the Persians did them one better. They improved the game, and then they gave it another name, shatranj. I hope I said that right. And we'll continue talking about the history of chess in just a couple of seconds, but right now we're going to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学，大家好，我是 Patrick 老师。老师想要请问大家，不晓得有没有看过 Netflix 上面的一出戏剧，叫做《后翼弃兵》The Queen's Gambit。那如果同学看过的话，或许在学习这一课会觉得更有感觉。这个课文呢，是在介绍西洋棋的。好，那我们看到第一段，其实就是在介绍西洋棋会有什么样子的场景，内容其实还蛮直截了当的。我们先看一下英文单字片语有哪一些特别值得我们注意的。首先，请同学先看到第二句 Their attention is glued to several black and white pieces。 这边下棋的这两位棋士，他们的注意力呢紧盯着棋盘上的黑白棋，黑色跟白色的这些棋子。Their attention is glued to， 他们注意着什么？接下来呢，请同学看到 although they appear 开头的这个句子，在主要子句 they are plotting each other's demise。 这里 plotting 请同学特别注意 plot 这个动词，它表示密谋策划的意思。通常后面所加的事情呢，就不是一件好事，所以下棋的棋士当然是希望能够赢得这一局的棋，他们就会去策划让对方呢死得很惨 plot， 请把它圈起来。那再来请同学看到最后一句 opponents， 对手 opponents。 当对方讲了 checkmate， 对方准备要将军了，那你输了，就这一局呢就结束了 putting an end to their competitive chess game。 那再来我们看到第二段最主要是在讲解西洋棋的起源，从印度开始，然后呢印度人教波斯人，而后波斯人再传到伊斯兰世界，最后呢当伊斯兰世界的帝国征服了西班牙、葡萄牙之后，再传到欧洲。好，那 这一段里面，请同学特别注意到起源于 originate 的用法 ，Chess originated in， 西洋棋起源于印度。再来，请同学特别注意到3个 R 开头的单字，分别是从 rather than 这里开始的 retaining， 请画起来。再来是 the Persians revised 的 revise， 画起来。再来是 renamed 这个 rename。3个 re 开头 re 开头的字，分别是波斯人并没有保留原本的规则 retain 保有保留 revise 是呢修正修订的意思。再来 rename 是重新命名。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
From Persia, which is modern-day Iran, the game spread throughout the Islamic Empire. So Iran and Iraq and Saudi Arabia, those are all countries in the Middle East, and that is the Islamic world. In this particular case, though, Persia was an Islamic empire, I believe, which could spread this game all throughout the Middle East and northern Africa. And then the Muslim armies would later teach the Spanish and Portuguese after conquering their lands. I believe that's referring to the Moors, who invaded the Iberian Peninsula, which includes Spain and Portugal. So yes, they conquered Spain and Portugal and influenced their culture, and they also taught them how to play chess. The Muslim armies conquered Spain and Portugal. To conquer means basically an army invades and takes over the country, which happens all the time in history.
It does. Moving on to the next paragraph, it says Europeans were keen to play chess. They probably had heard about it through the grapevine or people gossiping and just passing on word-of-mouth information. So keen to do something just means you're excited about it. Quite excited. The British use this word more than Americans do, but you can use keen. If you're keen on doing something, again, you're excited. So they wanted to try chess, and they made their own modifications as well. I think every culture thinks they can do something better than another culture. So modifications are alterations, are changes. All of those words mean pretty much the same thing. So if you modify, that's a verb. If you modify something, you change something, usually in the hopes that you'll make something better. So modifications, they made their own modifications. The English named it chess after the old French word, and this is an old French word. It no longer exists in modern-day French, but it was échec, perhaps. And it meant back then, it meant check. So that's how they renamed things. By the 1600s, the 1600s, of course, would be the 17th century. The 1600s, the game closely resembled or looked like chess as it's played today. So this game has been in its current form for hundreds of years. They're telling us right here, even by the 1600s, the game closely resembled chess as it's played today.
Right, so that game that was played in India branched out and headed west, but I believe it also went into China as well, because the Chinese game of xiangqi, or Chinese chess, is very similar to Western chess. I think Western chess and xiangqi have a common ancestor in India there. But in any case here, yes, the Europeans wanted to play chess. They made their own changes or modifications. And again, we've got the modern name coming from French there. Check, which I should mention, means that you basically have to look at something and verify whether it's in good condition or bad condition. I need to have my car checked. I need to have my tires checked. So I think that's what that means. When you put your opponent's king in danger, you say check. Check your king because you're in danger. You're about to lose the game.
I may capture your king if you don't do something right. Yeah, so you can also use check something out as a verb phrase to check. Maybe your car's not working, like Tom said. You could also say, hey, can you check out my car? It's making this weird noise. So its popularity today as a sport, or back then, we're still talking historically, guys. Its popularity as a sport exploded when chess tournaments were organized at the end of the 19th century or the 1800s. Oh, people like tournaments. A tournament is a competition that usually happens in rounds. So the first round, people will play. The winners go on to the second round, and the winners of the second round will go on. We often use a tournament to talk about golf. They have different rounds of golf, as you know, and also tennis tournaments, but we don't talk about baseball tournaments or basketball tournaments. We do have volleyball tournaments, though. So we use this word in particular sports. Sorry about that. You're going to have to make sure you're using the right word if you want to talk about this in terms of sports. For example, basketball, baseball, football. Don't use tournament.
Right, and if you have a tournament, of course, you have spectators who come and watch, so that's why it became very popular. People came to watch these chess matches, and they were thinking, gee, he should move his pawn there. Why doesn't he move his bishop there? That's the obvious move. Of course, nobody is supposed to say anything.
No.
But, yeah, they had these tournaments at the end of the 1800s, and players began utilizing more complex strategies to win championship matches. So if you utilize something, you just simply use it to your advantage. And yeah, the strategies got more and more complex, more complicated. That's what I've been told about Weiqi or Go. It's very complicated. There are lots of complex strategies, even more than Western chess, as I've been told. But fans enjoyed following the results to discover who the best players were. Which I think reminds me of when I was a kid. There was a big chess tournament between the American Bobby Fischer and the Russian Boris Spassky. Everybody wanted the American to win against those evil communist Soviets, and I think Fischer did indeed win that tournament.
Yeah, that was kind of before my time, but yeah, that was pretty popular in history. I wanted to mention on this verb, utilize, guys, the difference between utilize and use is if you use utilize, you're actually saying you're making practical use of it, effective use of something. Use doesn't necessarily mean you're being effective with how you're using something. So they did start utilizing more complex strategies, and it helped them win. Another high point for chess occurred in 1996. I remember this one. When the world's top player, Garry Kasparov, he squared off against Deep Blue. Square off is a verb phrase we use to talk about two teams or two men or two, groups of people competing against each other. They're going to square off. You can use it in any sport. Against Deep Blue. Deep Blue was the nickname for a computer made by IBM.
Interesting square off here because the board they play on is a big square. Maybe that's where the phrase came from, but they competed against each other. At least it was man versus computer here. And again, that was a chess-playing computer designed by IBM. And Kasparov was victorious in the first match. In other words, he won the first match. Here, victorious is just the condition in which you've actually won. And we often say emerge victorious. The two teams are playing and they went into overtime, but the blue team emerged victorious. They won.
In the first match, yes, the man won, but then IBM made some improvements. And computers, we've learned in today's world that they can actually teach themselves things after a while. It's kind of scary. So a year later, Deep Blue shocked the world. How did it do that? Well, Deep Blue defeated the man, Kasparov. So it took a little more, learning by the computer, but he was able to defeat Kasparov. If you defeat somebody, you beat them. You beat them in a sport. You beat them in any sort of competition. Maybe you defeated your competition by outselling them in the market. Well, it was pretty shocking to the world that a computer could beat the world's greatest chess player. He was the top player at the time. It was a rematch. Rematch means you've already played that person and now you're going to play them again. The computer was able to evaluate or check out hundreds of millions of moves per second. That doesn't really seem fair.
Right, but I think it's still more fun to watch humans play each other than computers. That's just not fair. You know, computers can do all those calculations and stuff like that.
So quickly.
Yeah, that's not surprising that a person could not defeat a computer. But let's keep people playing. Again, that's more fun. And that brings us to the end of our explanation, but we'll talk some more about the finer points of chess, what the pieces are called and stuff like that, and how they can move. We'll talk about that next time. But before we say goodbye today, we'd like to hear from our Chinese teacher.
第二段呢，还有几个文法重点，请同学特别注意。首先呢，就是这个游戏后来传到哪里 ？The game spread throughout the Islamic Empire。这个游戏呢，传播了整个伊斯兰世界、伊斯兰帝国。Spread， 请同学圈起来。In turn, Muslims' armies would later teach the Spanish and Portuguese.After conquering their lands， 这个句子一开头 in turn， 接下来这边表示的是像 then 一样接着，所以波斯人让西洋棋传遍整个伊斯兰世界之后呢，回教或伊斯兰教的这些军队呢，又接着教西班牙人跟葡萄牙人。再来最后一段文意，最主要是让我们了解到西洋棋是如何传播到整个欧洲，然后最后因经历了哪一些高潮，所以西洋棋变成非常受欢迎。有两大事件，分别呢是因为欧洲举办了很多的锦标赛，以及呢后来 IBM 所设计的 Deep Blue 打败了人类的棋王。好，那我们来看这一段有哪些重要的单字片语。首先，请同学看到第一句 Europeans were keen to play chess。 欧洲人很热衷于玩西洋棋。热衷于做什么事？ Be keen to do something。 那再来做了一些修正修订 Made their own modifications。 那动词是 modify M-O-D-I-F-Y， 做了一些修正Made their own modifications。 那再来呢，请同学看到 By the 1600s， 那到了17世纪的时候，那这个游戏其实就很像我们今天所玩的西洋棋了。The game closely resembled chess， 请注意哦，非常相似。那形容相似的程度，修饰相似的程度，副词我们用 closely。而动词呢，相似 resemble。 那再来我们看到词语搭配，就是呢西洋棋在欧洲大受欢迎 Its popularity as a sport exploded。 所以我们知道大受欢迎可以用 popularity exploded。 那最后一个重点，请看到最后一句，从逗点之后的 as the computer was able to， 这个 as 是因为的意思，因为电脑每秒钟可以算出好几亿步，那所以这里 as 当作因为，请同学谨记。以上是我们针对西洋棋这篇课文的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and please join us again next time when we continue to talk about chess, the ultimate strategy game. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Bye.
Bye.